As the villagers were laying the twins to rest, an old man suddenly appeared and poured a mysterious liquid into their mouths. What happened next was beyond belief. On a cold Friday evening, the twins Amelia and Ava were born. Their mother, Mary, held them lovingly in her arms and promised to love and protect them. She knew they would face ridicule because of her actions, but she resolved to teach her daughters to stand tall and never let the opinions of others define them. Mary vowed to raise her daughters to be strong, courageous, and confident in themselves. Although she felt like a failure, she was determined that her daughters' lives would be different, much better than hers. According to Mary's plan, her daughters would get married by 30 and have all their children before 35. As the girls grew, she would often tell them never to trust any man or love wholeheartedly, forbidding them to date until they turned 25. With all these rules in place, Mary thought she was protecting her daughters, preventing them from getting hurt and making the same irredeemable mistakes she had made. But was she doing the right thing? Sadly, she was too blind to see the effects of her actions. Keep watching as I unfold this gripping tale about a mother's love, betrayal, and deceit. This story all began about 2 decades ago. Mary was 18 and the belle of her village. Many wealthy men sought her love, and they went to extreme lengths just to show how much they cared. But Mary didn't fall for any of them. Instead, she loved a poor village hunter, Marco, who was 15 years older than her. When Mary turned 20, she decided that she was done admiring Marco from afar, and she confessed her feelings to him. The duo started as friends, but a few months later they officially started dating. Mary knew that Marco didn't love her as much as she loved him, but she didn't care. She was deeply in love with him, and she was scared that she would never love anyone else quite like him. As for Marco, he felt that Mary was caring, beautiful, young, and submissive, the perfect recipe for a good wife in his books. So he didn't necessarily love her, but somehow he knew she would make him happy and he would have peace of mind with her. So one night he asked Mary to marry him, and she agreed, looking forward to a married life filled with happiness and lots of laughter. Unfortunately, the marriage would turn out to be a far cry from all Mary had envisaged. Just within a year, it became apparent that they weren't compatible with each other. Mary found herself craving and begging for Marco's love and attention, which she really wasn't ready to give. To make matters worse, they couldn't produce a child even though all medical results showed that Mary was fertile. So why couldn't she give birth? Well, no one knew. 10 years flew past, and the couple was still without a child. By then, they were already living as strangers in their tiny home. Marco began to leave the house very frequently, and rumors started flying around that he was seeing a young woman in the neighboring village. Sometimes he left for months, and then he was gone for a whole year until one day he left, and 3 years down the line, he still hadn't returned. Mary, then 40, was lonely and miserable. It was during this vulnerable period of her life that a man named Ben visited the village for business. He and Mary ran into each other at the local market, and somehow they developed a thing for each other. You see, Marco had been gone for so long, and Mary didn't even know if she would ever see him again. And just right beside her was Ben, telling her he loved her and that he would do anything to prove it. He was loving, caring, and sweet, everything that Mary wanted Marco to be, so she fell helplessly in love with him. Soon enough, Mary and Ben began dating secretly. It was beautiful, perfect, and everything Mary had ever wanted. Well, that was so until one morning when she went to his house and his neighbors told her that he had left the village for good. Words fail to describe the amount of pain that Mary felt that day. Fast forward a few years, and you can imagine why she was so hard on her daughters, and why she would often scream at them whenever she saw them talking to boys in the village. 2 weeks after Ben left the village, Mary found out that she was pregnant, and it was this pregnancy that led to the birth of the twins Amelia and Ava. Mary was mocked for getting pregnant by a man that wasn't her husband, but she didn't let it get to her. When Marco heard that Mary had given birth, he finally returned home. He picked up what was left of his belongings and left for God knows where. That was one question on everyone's lips. Why hadn't Mary conceived when she was with Marco? Well, even Mary didn't have an answer to this question, but one thing was for certain. she would protect her daughters, and she would never let men hurt them. If only she knew she was slowly digging her daughters' graves with her actions. The twins had a very boring childhood, and their teenage years were uneventful as well. Mary would often lock them indoors because she didn't want them to go out and socialize. Mary really did try her best to prevent her daughters from dating early, but not for too long. She wanted them to start dating at 25, thinking they would be mature enough by then to quickly figure out when they were being used. But when Amelia turned 17, she started seeing some guy. She was discreet about it though. Ava also began dating a guy at 18, but she kept it a secret from her mother and twin sister. Sadly, 2 years later, Mary fell very sick, and the doctor said she had less than a year to live. While on her sickbed, she made her daughters promise her not to give their hearts to anyone until they were old and mature enough. I don't want you to ever look back on your life and regret it. I want you to have a perfect life, she told them one morning. Sadly, 2 weeks later, Mary passed away. Even after Mary's death, the sisters kept the secret about their relationships away from each other. A year later, the twins noticed that they were both showing pregnancy signs, but they told each other that they probably had the flu. You see, although they loved each other, they were embarrassed to admit that they had broken the promise they had made to their mother. A week after the girls found out that they were pregnant, they told each other that they needed to pop by friends for a quick visit. Amelia was the first to leave the house. She had told her boyfriend that she was pregnant, and he had asked her to come over so they could celebrate. Little did she know he was plotting something terrible against her. An hour later, Amelia returned home, but Ava wasn't there. About 30 minutes later, Ava also came back home. The two sisters started chatting when they suddenly felt an intense stomach pain. Within a few seconds, they sprawled to the ground. The pain was so intense that the sisters did not doubt that they were living their last moments. Just then, Ava managed to say, "I think Leo Marshall, my boyfriend, poisoned me. I am pregnant, sis," before passing out. Amelia, who was in so much pain, couldn't believe her ears. Did her sister just say Leo Marshall? That was also the name of her boyfriend. At that point, everything became clear. Leo had played both sisters, and he was secretly dating both of them. When he had learned that they were both pregnant by him, he had decided to take their lives. A few hours later, the neighbors found the seemingly lifeless sisters in their room, and since they had no relatives, they decided to bury them right away. But just as they were about to lay the coffin in the ground, Marco, now 75, suddenly appeared from a corner. The old man walked over to the coffins, opened each one, and then put a liquid into the girls' mouths. About 2 minutes later, the sisters started coughing and sat up in their coffins before their stepfather helped them out of them. The villagers were so scared that they took to their heels, screaming that the dead sisters had come back to life. Later that evening, Marco explained to the girls that he was their stepfather, and although he had left their mom, he felt the need to protect them after she passed away. So he secretly watched over them. He knew about their relationship with Leo and wanted to find the right time to tell them. Just 2 days before, he had seen Leo at the toxicologist's shop, but thought nothing of it until he learned of the girls' deaths. He knew then that Leo had a hand in it, so he quickly got an antidote and saved their lives. Fortunately, Leo was later apprehended. 9 months later, Amelia and Ava went into labor, and each sister gave birth to a set of twins. Mary had been a great mom who tried to protect her daughters in the way she thought was right. However, the twins knew they could do better. Unlike their mother, they wouldn't be so hard on their daughters because they understood that making mistakes and failing is part of life. Yet they would carry forward Mary's lesson to never let their circumstances define them and to always get up and keep fighting. Because sometimes you have to go through the darkness to reach the light. I'm really keen to know your thoughts on this story, so please don't hesitate to share your insights in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and found it engaging, I invite you to subscribe to our channel for more similar content. Feel free to share this video with your friends and family to spread the enjoyment. Take good care of yourselves, and I'm excited to connect with you in our future videos.